We cannot deny God's truth, which is embedded in creation. By affirming His truth, we point people toward the reality of a relationship with Him. Today's key verse reads, "For the invisible things of Him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse." Romans chapter 1, verse 20. Idolatry was widespread when Paul was writing to the Romans. The primary focus of worship for most people in the Roman Empire was the Roman state and its rulers. Emperor worship was common. For example, Caligula, emperor from AD 37 to 41, declared himself a god and commanded the Romans to worship him. Although Paul probably wrote to Rome in a time of relative peace toward the beginning of Nero's reign, under Claudius, some of the members of the church at Rome had been forced to leave due to persecution of the Jews and had only recently returned. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven, not in the gospel, but in the facts of human experience. Paul is not talking about the wrath of God that will be revealed at the end of time. Paul is talking about God's wrath revealed in the punishments imposed by human governments, the accusations of conscience, the pain of childbirth, the necessity of toil as a result of a sin-cursed environment, and the inescapable penalty of death itself. Most significantly, the most obvious revelation of God's wrath is His giving over the Gentiles to the consequences of their sinful desires and depraved lifestyles. Paul explains that the Gentiles had enough knowledge about God to offer Him their due thanks and praise, but did not. They neither glorified God nor gave thanks, instead directing their natural instinct for praise and honor to false gods like the sun, the moon, and other created animals, and in so doing, they were taken over by falsehood. Ingratitude toward God will always harden hearts and make them unresponsive to His self-revelation. These Gentiles became vain in their imaginations, or futile in their thoughts. They became foolish and useless in their thoughts and reasonings. The Gentiles had knowledge of God, but chose to forsake His glory to follow their own passions and lusts. They did not find it wise to follow God. They chose not to think of, nor serve, or adore God. This is where they went wrong. They forsook God, so He gave them up to a reprobate mind, a mind destitute of judgment and incompetent understanding. The Greek word for reprobate is adokimos, useless, failing the test, unsatisfactory, or disreputable, which may be taken passively for a mind disapproved by God, or actively for a mind which disapproves of all good. As we read this text, it is important to note that God did not compel them nor refuse them knowledge. He did not abandon them at all. They chose to forsake God, and God gave them to their own worthless speculations. In the face of stubborn and obstinate refusal to honor God, people are left to their own twisted ways. The Gentiles not only know the right thing to do in their conscience, they also know the penalty for not obeying that conscience. Sadly, these Gentiles not only commit these sins, but take pleasure in those that do them. Committing these sins in itself is bad and worthy of judgment. However, Paul adds that to applaud and celebrate those who commit these sins is just as bad, if not worse, than doing them. Sometimes we don't give God the thought and devotion He expects. He told us that He would take care of us. Do we wonder if He will come through? So many today choose to willfully ignore God and His revelation of Himself. Many also want to aggressively prevent others from believing too. Our challenge is to continue our hopeful work, expecting and planning for opposition and unbelief. We should prepare ourselves to stand strong in our faith. Heavenly Father, fill our hearts with what we desire, for what we truly desire is You.